This is entry 17 of Expedition Handheld. I'm Russ Crandall.
And I'm Adam Patrick Murray, and this is Hannah, and we'll be your guides on this journey of handheld gaming discovery.
Buckle up, we're about to take off.
Speaking of handhelds, this is the ultimate handheld in my hand. It's a kitten. This is Hannah. When I was in Computex, Lindsay, my wife, decided to sign up to be a foster. So we have 4 of these cute little. We think they're snowshoe breed, and they are the cutest things because they're like the perfect age where they have a ton of energy and they do a lot of wild stuff. But no matter what they do, they can't really destroy anything.
Yeah, they're not destructive, right?
Yeah, they're just too tiny, and like I'll literally sit with them on the couch, all 4 of them, and for like half an hour they'll just run back and forth on the couch. Like occasionally, maybe accidentally, like fall off the couch, but not intentionally, and they're just content to run back and forth across me on the couch and just have fun. And
that is so
cool. Last night I was doing some gaming on a handheld that we'll talk about it in a minute. And one of them, I don't remember if it was Hannah or not, like hopped up on my lap and it was just like sitting there kind of like nibbling on my fingers. I was trying to game.
That's so cute.
But yeah, it's a cute little handheld. Hi.
Yeah. We got a new cat maybe about a year ago now. And so he's like a year and a half old. And he did not have any human contact when he was a kitten, like that age. And so he doesn't have like that, that imprint that they all have. And so he doesn't like to be on laps. He doesn't like to be held or any of that stuff. And it's so funny to watch him because it's like part of him wants to do it. And then another part's like, no, don't do that. He's the enemy, And so it's like just a weird dynamic compared to having a kitten.
Takes time. So, warm up.
Super cool.
Yeah. We're definitely trying to desensitize them, like touch all the ears, touch all the nails, touch the tummy, handle them, make sure they're used to being handled.
That's so cool.
So no, but we're just fostering. No plans on keeping any of them. But you never know. Definitely not all 4. I can't handle 4 cats in the house.
Right, because they
that's
at some
too many
point will be
Russ.
Yeah, they will be destructive at some point.
Yeah. It's just too many handhelds. I got a drawer full of handhelds already. I can't have more fluffy handhelds. All right, I had to put the kittens away. Back to the cage they go. But Russ, what is this? What is this voice you're continuing to do? I know you started at Computex. It's this new alter ego, and you're continuing it. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I'm still a little hoarse. It's actually so I'm just a zombie right now. Like I still haven't adjusted to the time zone, even though I've been home for like 4 or 5 days. Because I was gone for almost 3 weeks, it really, I just became an East Asian in terms of time zones, And so coming back to Hawaii, I'm still having some time adjusting to it. And then also, I haven't made a video in a while. And so I sat down to record my travel video, which came out today, at least as of recording here today. And that was like an hour-long video, but that was, 2.5 hours of footage that I recorded in order to get all that 1 hour. And so my voice is like, I'm not used to talking all day. And so, I'm just a mixture of that. I'm feeling great. Like I haven't had any issues other than like that very last episode that we recorded at Computex. That was like the last day I felt bad. Everything after that was great. So
that's good. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to catch up with you. We've talked a little bit on Discord about stuff going on, but for the most part, we were together at Computex for like a whole week straight, and then
I just disappeared.
You ripped from my arms and went on your own little adventure, and I just came home. I'm already way past the jet lag part, so now it's your turn. Actually, I had to deal with the jet lag in last week's episode where Steve filled in, which hopefully people. Job. Yeah, hopefully people watch that episode because, man, Steve is a fountain of knowledge. I love Steve. He's super cool, and he also I think I told him on the episode, and I was like, man, Russ is gonna be jealous that he didn't get a chance to check out these old weird handhelds as well, because man, some of them, like getting your hands on some of those old classics are just like, well, not classics, but just weird points in history. Handheld history is just crazy.
the way I think about it is like, I knew you guys were recording. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. And I couldn't wait to watch it, and just kind of experience it as an outsider. What I didn't realize is I would be like seething with jealousy the whole time because I'm like, I want to be there. I want to be part of that too. And so it's just kind of like a mixed emotion where I'm like, oh, it's so cool to watch it. And also, why did they do this without me? That kind of thing. So.
Well, listen, we're definitely going to have Steve on again. Steve is a huge fan of you, Russ, and was like, I can't wait to chat more. So we'll definitely have Steve on.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a good time, and I have you watched the episode at all?
I've only watched the first half yet because it's often if I'm thinking about Expedition Handheld, I'm thinking of it more so as like an audio with some visual cues, but I think of it as an audio podcast. But because you guys were doing so much show and tell, I had to like pause it and be like, no, I need to watch this, so I just haven't had a chance. But now that I've finished my big video, I'm definitely going to watch it later today.
Nice. So cool. So, I mean, we're going to cover your video, your adventures you were having, kind of what's in your pocket section. There's been, stuff going on that we can talk about for sure. But first, let's get to a little bit of news because really there's kind of only one big thing to talk about here. And that is that the impending launch of the MSI Claw 8EX AI Plus is upon us, and we have finally gotten official confirmation for pricing. So Russ, tell us, what does this thing cost?
So the official price, so the MSRP is going to be $1,800, $1,799. But they're having like pre-order bonuses with selected retailers, making it $1,699, so $100 off. Still, that's so much money. I mean, we're talking $1,800 for a handheld, regardless of how good it is just it's funny money at that point. It's just kind of crazy. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit at Computex because they had told us they were trying to aim for something, and then there was a little bit of confusion a couple days ago because there was the posting on the MSI store page, which was $1,800. But then over on Newegg, it was like, no, actually it's $1,700. But we did get clarification from MSI themselves that this was a launch price or like a pre-order bonus price. I don't know how the best way to describe it, kind of thing. But the actual price will be $1,800. That is a huge chunk of change.
It is. I mean, part of me thinks if they can go to that price in the beginning, they can go to it at some other point too. So I think we'll probably see sale prices pretty like regularly that'll go down that $100 if they already were doing it in the beginning. But still, $1,600 is a lot of money, or $1,700 is still a lot of money versus $1,800 too. So and that was one of the big things that I kind of, I mean, we should also say, like, we both have review units. I think they both came in yesterday, the day before. So we're working on it. There's an embargo and stuff. But the biggest thing for me is like the big jump in performance versus other devices that are at a similar price, like that Legion Go 2. So that's kind of one of the bigger things for me too. It's a terrible price no matter what you look at, like just in terms of how much it's going to hurt your wallet. But then also it's like, okay, well, if you compare it against all the other terrible deals, it's like a less terrible deal, which is still not an environment I want to be in. But that's kind of one of the ways I'm looking at it.
Yeah, for me, there's three kind of things. Number one is, what would the pricing have been in a different world, right? Like, obviously, we're dealing with a whole situation with AI and hardware and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, Panther Lake 18A has been in development for years. And so I'm sure Intel and MSI did not want this to be the price at launch. That's where it is. So part of me is like, man, I wonder what kind of price they were trying to hit, right?
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, without somebody coming out and telling us, which I doubt Intel or MSI is going to tell us, well, we were actually trying to hit this price. Right. So, we can, whatever. But also, it doesn't matter. It didn't hit that price. This is the price that we have now. And number one, like compare and contrast to other devices at that price point and like what that means kind of stuff. But for me, like the kind of the third part of it is, what does this mean for handhelds kind of in general? Like where is it going? Like we have a question that had who'd posed it. Let me find it. Oh, here we go. Friend of the show, Deidus, the CEO of Deezer, asked, "Do you think the RAM storage situation is going to slow growth / adoption in the handheld market? Without a $400-ish banger like the Steam Deck, the entry point, at least for PC handhelds, shot way up right as the sector was growing." That's the thing I worry about, is that there was good momentum, right? Handhelds were getting awesome for good prices, and of course there was stuff that was more expensive than the others. But like, what does this mean for the longevity of this market? I love it, and there are plenty of people out there who are willing to pay these kind of prices, so there still is going to be a market. But like, I mean, you can't ask a normal gamer to be like, oh yeah, if you want something that is portraying itself to be the best of the best, here you go, $1,800.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
It is. I think that at every $100 price increase, it's just reducing more and more people who are going to be able to buy it, which is a shame. And it is doing a number on my brain. Like when we were in Taipei and they had just announced the Steam Deck pricing increase, and then we saw Steam Decks there on the shelf, like that you could buy, and they hadn't really adapted the prices yet, or maybe they just have lower prices, but it was like $800-ish for the high end one. And I was like, should I just buy another one right now? I'm thinking about it. I've got a perfectly good Steam Deck here. I think I actually have two. I've got my black one and the white one too. I don't need another one, but I was still like, oh, I better get it now while I can. You know what I mean? Because I could save $150. And man, it's doing a number on my brain. Like I don't like being in this world. It's crazy.
Yeah. In interesting times. We can't talk about embargoed stuff. Like, yes, we do have them on hand, but I'm definitely sitting here being like, oh, okay, yeah, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And we'll keep it to that for now and talk about it more in the future. The other little piece of information, at least on this launch, is that I was reading through the notes that are here on the MSI store page. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for people who are watching the video, but essentially, like in the copy, first I noticed a typo. It says a 1920 by 1080. That is not true. It is actually 1200. That's okay. Right. It's a typo. People get stuff wrong. But then I noticed this little note down here for the screen that says IPS level panel. I've actually noticed other manufacturers do this before, and I'm not like huge into display technology, so I didn't fully understand what it meant. And so, I mean, like I did. My first thing was to do what everyone else did, and was just to Google, okay, what does an IPS level panel display actually mean? And one of the very top articles that I saw was from this company, laptopmedia.com, and they answered this question in a news article, and they're saying, quote, "You should note that IPS level usually means a TN display, and although MSI's TN panels are a lot better than what you get for average TN panel, it's still a TN panel," end quote. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that sucks. TN is usually not good for what I like. But I mean, from what I've seen, the screen was nice, so I just took it at face value for a second. Then I was like, wait, I should double check. You should always get multiple sources. So I continued to poke around Google, and I found this comment on Reddit from a person that was. It's a very long post. I'll link down to in the description. But essentially, they're claiming that they are all using technology the same as IPS, but since IPS is owned by LG Philips, they can't say IPS unless they wanted to get sued by LG Philips. So, end quote. And so essentially there's like weird information out there that is not like super deep and super backed up. And so I decided, I was like, I'm just going to email MSI and see what they say. And I did get a response back from MSI, the PR person that we both work with. And they said, quote, "IPS is a trademark term However, it refers to the same type of display technology. To avoid using the trademarked designation officially, we refer to it as IPS level instead of IPS, end quote. So, not that it matters to anybody out there, but it was a little bit of misinformation that I was like, it's nice to clear up. This is still an IPS type display. It's just they're not going to use that in marketing because then they would have to pay for the licensing.
Right.
And you'd be surprised how often that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I actually had seen a couple comments because when I made my MSI Claw preview video, I showed a screenshot or something and it said IPS level, and someone was like, what does IPS level mean? So I'm glad that you ran that down. That's actually pretty interesting. Yeah, I was going to say it can't be TN, I couldn't imagine this being a TN display. But again, my thoughts on TN is the old 3DS screens and stuff that look terrible, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. There's varying degrees of quality for each panel type, and also some people like certain panel types over others. But I mean, this falls under the general impressions of what we've seen on the Claw before, so this is not part of the review. But generally, in terms of screens out there, you've got OLED and you got IPS on these handhelds, and I mean the IPS panel on this Claw is not anything that is bad at all.
Yeah, I think it's great.
It's really good for an IPS level panel.
Definitely at that IPS level.
IPS level, yeah. Anyway, there is more to come when it comes to the MSI Claw 8 EX AI Plus.
I got to get that name down by the time I make my video. I still don't have it down.
Well, and it's not even the full name, because what the full name is actually the MSI Claw 8 EX AI Plus CG3EM. So, yeah, which is
better and better
product names. There's more of that to come. But there's also more of this podcast to come right after this ad break. All right, Russ, you're back from an expedition.
Better than
over
ever.
to Shenzhen, China, through Hong Kong, and then back home. I have a lot of travel-related questions, but also, I guess I need to ask, in transit, did you get any more time with any handhelds? Anything you've been testing, anything like that?
Well, I know what you're actually asking, and I didn't actually play any more Symphony of the Night. Sorry. Because we, our last episode, we're like, oh yeah, we'll talk about this later, and we'll go through the map and stuff, and we never did. And then I panic texted you, and I was like, I don't know what to do next. And you're like, send me a map. And I was like, I can't do that right now. And so we never got to it. So I ended up, what did I do? I ended up reading, and then I ended up watching TV. I watched the new Darth Maul video or show on Disney Plus, and so I ended up just doing that stuff. Not a lot of gaming, but in Shenzhen I did have some downtime. There would be nights where sometimes I got done a little early and stuff. So I did play Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD remake. So that's the new PC remakes, and play them on Game Native, and they're pretty demanding, even though they're 2D games or whatever.
Right.
Just a lot of stuff happening, kind of like Octopath Traveler can really spike sometimes.
Well, if I remember, it's actually they developed that in Unreal Engine, so I think that's also why it's
that's probably it. Yeah,
a little more beefy.
Yeah, and it's in all of the places you wouldn't expect. You walk into a church, that's where you go to save your game, and it's tanking. They're like, oh, no, you get 15 frames per second now, So it is what it is. I don't think any of it really matters. But yeah, it's a good game. I love, Dragon Warrior on NES back in the day. It's my first role-playing game ever. I talk about it a lot in some videos. And yeah, playing this updated version is kind of neat. They got a lot of options. You can change your difficulty settings and all that kind of stuff too. And so I just kind of found something that worked for me, where it wasn't too challenging, but still I was having to stack up on my potions and stuff to be able to restore my health and stuff. So yeah, really enjoying that so far. And then Mina the Hollower came out while we were gone. And so I picked that one up, and that one runs beautifully on Game Native too. So playing a lot of that. And then more Breath of the Wild. That's mostly it. All of my Odin 3. So just this baby has been getting so much love.
All right, that was going to be my next question because I
Mm.
was like, "Come on, Russ, you just visited all the major manufacturers over there. I'm
Yeah.
sure they stuffed your pockets full of hardware that has not even been announced yet, and you're testing on
Oh
it.
yeah.
Just look at the camera and wink if you have something that isn't publicly available yet."
No, they didn't give me anything. But I will say, for my Odin 3, we mentioned like you found that little hair crack that I had, like the hairline crack on mine. And I showed it to them, like I brought it with me, and they're like, "Oh, can we have that for a second?" I'm like, "Sure." And they just replaced it right then and there. And they were like, "Oh yeah, this
Oh, the back
happened."
shell.
Yeah, they said the white model in particular, the very early ones, like because I pre-ordered like day one for this thing. They said the very early ones, like the plastic wasn't great, and there was an issue with the heat sink, and it was bulging a bit too much or something. So they swapped out the heat sink and the back plate in like 5 minutes while I was talking to their CEO, which is kind of crazy. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
if you got a crack, then contact them because it sounds like they admitted that it was something that they should have fixed. So.
Or become a very well-known YouTuber, get a chance to go over to Shenzhen and talk to
Right.
the company, and they'll just replace it for you.
Yeah,
right there.
take the slow road right there. It only takes 6 years.
But all jokes aside, yeah. So of this morning, I woke up and there was a brand new Russ travel log waiting for me in my subscription feed, and I was like, all right, before I get to work, I'm gonna watch this whole thing. On 2 times. I watch most YouTube on 2 times speed anyway,
Wow.
so I powered through it pretty quick. What a good travelogue. We don't need to go through all of the ins and outs here. I do have some
thanks.
follow-up questions in some ways, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to first start off by just I think you talked in the last episode just how demanding travelogues can be, and the past couple times that you've traveled, you actually didn't make one, but this one kind of had a lot more pressure on it. Do you feel like it turned out well? Do you wish you would have done something different, or are you happy with how it turned out?
I'm happy with it. I do wish I'd just taken more footage. It's one of those where that's the thing I hate about the whole travel log thing too, is like I want to just experience the moment, right? And just like, just put it in my memory banks like humans have always done, right? But then there's the other urge to pull out my camera, pull out my phone and like capture it too, and that takes away from everything, and so I didn't have a lot of footage. I had a few like walking down the street stuff and whatnot, but I didn't get a lot of good like city shots. I didn't like just little things like that where I just didn't stop to like, hey, I need to take a picture right now. So that's like my one regret is that like I just wish I'd had more footage, which is a good regret to have, I think, among all of the things. I knew it was going to be a long video, but 55 minutes of finished cut, it's so much work. There are thousands of different clips that I had, and I had to go through and my notes and stuff. So that's why it took me. I flew in on Saturday, started working on Sunday, and didn't release it until Wednesday. So that was a good solid 3 days of work, just getting that together.
Okay, that was going to be my other question. Like, were you assembling parts of it along the journey, or you waited till the whole thing was over?
The notes I was assembling on the go. So I was basically just using a phone app and just like going through, making sections, and like, okay, what am I going to talk about here? What am I going to talk about here and stuff? And what questions do I want to ask these guys? Stuff like that. So that definitely was all formulated, but it's so daunting when you're like, okay, let me just open up my video editor. 3,000 clips. Go ahead and get started. It's like, I don't want to touch any of these, And so that's always the hardest part for me. So yeah, the way I record these is so I'm sitting in front of this camera right here, right? And so I just read my notes, basically just like, okay, that was my next point. And I just kept going all the way through. And that took me about 2.5 hours. And then edited that down and then throwing everything on top of it. And that takes several hours. And so, yeah, it's fun to do.
Yeah.
I like it. So, but it's kind of crazy. And there was a point where I was like, am I talking about food too much? Like there's like those other like kind of questions you have as you go through, but I was like, nope, leave it in. I'm going to put that picture of fried frogs in there, because it was so crazy to me. I'm just going to show it. And so things like that.
Yeah, really good. I mean, I'm going to assume everyone on here has either watched it or planning on watching it. And if you're not, you should definitely go watch it. The link will be down in the description.
Thank you.
Really fun times. I mean, when I saw it pretty early. I think it had already been up for maybe an hour or 40 minutes or something like that. But there was still a ton of comments of people being like, "Oh, this is my favorite. My favorite is Russ travel logs." Like, how has the feedback been that you've seen?
Yeah, it's been overall positive. It's not like it's not like a very successful video in terms of like views so far. I think it's something that probably will have longer legs and stuff, but it's not like a viral hit or anything, you know. This really was made like for the people in the community who had more questions about it like me, you know. And so that's kind of what I want to do. That's why I made it 55 minutes. I was like, let's just give them everything. I don't want to cut out anything, you know. And so that was like the major factor right there. It was like, I get it, it's for a much smaller audience, but hopefully it's like people are coming away with like new knowledge and stuff. Cause that's like, I learned so much while I was there. It was just kind of crazy. And it's really hard to kind of process some of that too. So
yeah, I found it interesting when you were kind of trying to describe the feeling of being in Shenzhen. I mean, I've never been there. Taiwan is, or I should say specifically Taipei is the only place I've ever been in Asia. So not only did you get to kind of compare it to Taipei, you also compared it to the Philippines, or I'm sorry, Singapore.
Yep.
And like, so comparing, contrasting things like that, but also it just, I didn't realize how big it was when you said it was like, what, 2 Manhattans or something like that?
2 New York cities. There's like 18 million people. In New York City, I think it's like 7 million. So it's like well over double the size in population. It's crazy. I mean, just the province, like the area itself, the surrounding area. So if it's Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and like Guangdong and all that stuff, like think of an area about the size of like, let's say Texas, but probably even smaller than that. 900 million people in just that area. That's almost 3 times the US population in that size of like Texas. You know what I mean? Like that's how just crazy it is in terms of people. That was the biggest thing when I got home. I was like, I'm not surrounded by people right now. It's very odd. You know, like it's just like to be able to touch 10 people at any given time. You know, that's just like kind of one of those things. And yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes for people who have only ever been in the US and haven't traveled abroad. Like there are places in Europe, obviously in Asia, that are you know, very dense. Like there's a lot of people, like people are stacked upon each other. I guess maybe the closest place in the US would be New York City, because it is just like so condensed in one little area. But I still feel it's a little different. A little different of a vibe kind of thing. You mentioned the hustle culture nature of it as well, a little bit. I mean, just how everyone's working on stuff and has multiple jobs, or not multiple jobs, but some of these people have multiple companies and all that kind of stuff. Like what was the vibe? It was like just people trying to make it, or are they just trying to survive? Or
there is definitely a lot of like hustle, like you said, you know, like just multiple fingers in multiple pots. And then also like it's known in China that Shenzhen is the place to work. Like it's the crazy city. You know what I mean? Like it's not like that in the rest of China, at least according to what people were telling me and stuff. It's a big melting pot too, because not a lot of people there are from Shenzhen. They're all like, they moved in, you know, over the past 20 years or so. And so just a really big melting pot of different cultures and cuisines and regional specialties and stuff. So I think that makes it a very unique city. And I think it's like the 3rd largest in China too. So there's just a lot going on there. But yeah, a lot of hustle. It's strange. It's one of those things, like as an American, right? I'm walking around and just being around so many people, like just elevates my attention and like a little bit of like stress and anxiety, because I feel like I need to make eye contact with everyone. You need to acknowledge every person that's around me, right? That's just a very American thing, right? But it's the different there, you know, like they just like, there's so many people around and they still just kind of don't pay attention to anyone else other than like what they're doing, you know, and it's not a bad thing, you know, it's just kind of what they're used to. But for me, it's like, I'm like heightened awareness while I'm out, and everyone else is like, why is this guy just scanning everything around him? Like, it's just kind of how I am, you know? And so really interesting.
I mean, part of it's OPSEC. I don't know, like, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like my dad was taught me OPSEC early. So whatever, there's that kind of stuff. But also somebody had told me before I went to Taiwan of like, hey, listen, I know you're going to want to hold the door open to let people in. Don't hold the door open.
Right.
It's not rude. It's just, and like, I still find myself multiple times going back to Taiwan and like wanting to hold the door open just to be kind. Right. And then I'm just like, oh crap. People are just continuing to walk through.
Right.
When do I stop? Like now I have to make the choice. Oh, you're the person I'm going to let go the door from.
Right.
You know, it's just different.
Yeah, everything's a little different. And that's another thing too. You know, I've traveled throughout most of Asia and stuff, but I'd never been to China. And I was really struck by how foreign it felt. Like not Like again, that can kind of sound negative, but it's not a negative thing. Like it just felt like I was a fish out of water. Like there were like it was mostly like children. I'd walk by and they were just like mouths open, like staring at me, like, what is this guy? And that's in a very international city, but it just felt very distinctly foreign. I probably saw like 2 Westerners the whole time I was there. And that's mostly when I was like shopping around and stuff.
But it's also not like a tourist destination like Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
Or, like other places like Seoul or, like even Hong Kong, probably to a certain degree, is probably even more of a tourist destination than Shenzhen. Like sure. We want to go there because we're nerds, but like the normal, American is not like, oh man, I heard that I should go to Shenzhen.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. Like I never heard of this city until I started my channel and started learning this kind of stuff. So I think that's definitely a thing. But it was just kind of odd, you're walking through a big park, and I tried to show some clips of this where it's just like, Chinese flags everywhere. And I'm just like, wow, it's like the level of like patriotism and like showing off their country and stuff like that. It's not often something you will see in other countries, but it was definitely there. And it's just such a stark contrast to the stars and stripes that I'm used to and whatnot. And so, yeah, just a really fun, unique experience. And I really love that part.
So you touched on it a little bit in the video, but how hard was it to get around? Not just verbally, but also like reading signs. In Taipei, it's actually pretty easy because a lot of people know English, and the signs are a lot of times like in both languages kind of thing. Yeah. But did you have to use any tools like Google Translate on your phone? Did you have a translator with you for most of the time?
Yeah, it was surprisingly difficult. So I agree. Taiwan, very easy to get around. Singapore is a lot like that too. I mean, English is one of their official languages. Hong Kong, same thing, where it's like just very easy. I mean, it's very kind of British, like they drive on the left side of the road, that kind of thing too there. But Shenzhen, like it was so hard. Like thankfully, I had a friend, his name's Lee, who like actually flew into Shenzhen to kind of like hold my hand through a lot of that stuff. Really understanding of him, that really helped. But I didn't have him like, because he's like Ambernick related, and so I like didn't bring him when I went to go talk to Retroid, that kind of thing. Getting around is actually surprisingly difficult because, for example, you can't just pull up Google Maps and like use that to find your way around, because it does have like some of the locations and stuff, but it isn't the same as like an actual Chinese version of their Maps apps, which has like all of the stuff and the information and actual ratings and everything else. And so like calling a car or doing all those things that you can do in Taiwan, like you can just pull up Uber and boop, boop, boop. You know what I mean? That's not how it is there. You have to use like WeChat, and within that they have like sub apps. And within that is one called Didi, which is like their Uber, but it's all in Chinese. There's like, you can't just type in the word for Ambernick and it's going to take you to Ambernick. You know what I mean? And even street names, you can't type in a street name in English and it's going to work. And so I never once called a car. I basically had to get somebody to help me every single time. Hey, can you schedule me a car from this place to this place at this time? That kind of thing. Really, really challenging. Like it was the big language barrier there, way more than, say, for example, even Japan. Japan, they've got a lot of things in Japanese and stuff, but you can usually kind of figure things out. I was really in it over my head sometimes, which was fun, but also a little scary when you're like, oh man, I'm in a communist country right now. Like I don't want to be stranded or go on the wrong side of the law in any way, and so that was just kind of an additional fear that I had there. Totally unwarranted. I don't think there was any of that actual fear or any danger, but just definitely something that kind of had to be mindful about.
Well, I've found myself like if it ever looks like I'm struggling with something in Taipei, like especially with trying to get like money for getting on the metro system. Yeah. Like if somebody saw me just kind of sitting there being like, oh, how do I do this? Like they were actually, some people were nice enough to come up and help. Were people like coming up to you and like offering help, like friendly ways?
Like just totally ignored by most people, Okay. And I think we've talked about it too, but that's like my special power. Like in Japan, I'll just go like this. And somebody will come and say, like, how can I help you? It's because they want to practice English, for the most part. But that's like my superpower. But it doesn't work when I have my wife with me, who's Japanese, right? And so it's like I have to be alone and do that confused American look, and it works, I didn't get any of that.
But it doesn't work in Shenzhen.
Well, part of it too is like because I was kind of felt in over my head, I also didn't want to make myself a target. So I was like totally like just acting like I knew what I was doing, and so I think that was part of it too, that I wasn't making myself approachable in that way just because of, my fear of whatever was going to happen and stuff, the language barrier.
That's funny. Well, let's talk about the companies.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned for a second there that your translator friend was associated with Ambernick, and you weren't going to bring them to a Retroid meeting, but come on, all these guys know each other, right? Like
they have met. So that was one question I asked, like, do you guys know each other? And so this is when I was talking to Morechip, was the overall company that owns AYN and Retroid. And their CEO, thankfully, like, his English is actually pretty darn good. And I think he's worked in America at some point too. So it's like he definitely has that knowledge. And so I asked him that apparently they did a trade show in Hong Kong last year before, something like that. And they put their booths in opposing parts, like right next to one another. So they're looking at each other for like the whole 3-day thing,
Like intentionally, or the trade show did that?
I think the trade show people did it, I don't know if they did it like on purpose or whatever, but it's just how it all fell out. And so they're like kind of looking at each other the whole time, and then I guess Ambernick was very like nice, and like Max Zhou, who's like their lead designer guy, is like a legend, he came over and said hi to everyone. And so it was fine, but that's like the extent of their relationship, is just kind of, I think they like hear in the grapevine what they're working on, that kind of stuff. But then otherwise they just kind of doing their own thing.
So it's not like a friendly rivalry or something, or like it is pretty competitive?
I think that they just kind of, they operate in a vacuum, but then also they do kind of try to keep tabs on each other. But I think the best thing they've done is they've kind of segmented, they're not directly competing as much anymore as they used to. You could say some of the high-end Ambernick devices are kind of going after a Retroid device, but for the most part, it's like they've kind of found their own niches, which I think is a good thing, So in that regard, I didn't really get any sense of like competitiveness with them or anything else like that between the others. Like in talking to Ambernick, they never even brought Retroid up once. I didn't even mention it. They were just like, this is what we're working on, this is what we're doing, like this is like what we're focusing on, kind of thing. Did
they talk about other companies, like the big guys like MSI and Asus and Lenovo?
Not really. Who was it? Somebody. Oh no, 1X Player asked me about that stuff. They were the ones. They were kind of like more and like hunting. Like, hey, how could we overcome MSI and Asus? That kind of thing. So they definitely were like feeling that, I think, and like trying to really establish themselves. But the other guys, they didn't really care.
Okay, so I guess I would have assumed there was a little bit more kinship and camaraderie and like everyone working together over like
this together, right?
Yeah, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but like I usually refer to Shenzhen based companies are there's Shenzhen based companies, and then there's the big guys like MSI, Asus, Lenovo, that kind of stuff. So like I'm glad you gave kind of a breakdown of how the feeling is, but it doesn't feel like it's like, us versus them kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, it definitely, it just, again, like I was the guest, and so they may have been putting on a front, you know what I mean? Like I probably wasn't seeing their day in, day out, like interactions. And so this is really just what they wanted to present to me in some ways too. So yeah, it could be there.
It also makes me wonder if there's any like tactical or not tactical corporate espionage, like somebody who secretly works for Ambernick like gets a job over at AYN and is like reporting back trade secrets, and then turns out they're actually double crossing them and reporting back what Ambernick is doing to AYN. And then triple crossing them, because then they're actually reporting back to Asus. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I think it really is, like I'm sure you've had this experience too, where it's like you're working on stuff and you're just like head in the sand, and you just kind of can't focus on anything else that's going on. You're just trying to get through your tasks for the day. And so I think they're kind of at that level, like they're surviving, they're kind of, innovating in their own ways, but they're not at the point of like letting jealousy, like, kind of drive them.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, how much did they roll out the red carpet? I mean, it's the famous Russ from Retro Game Corps coming all the way from Hawaii to spend time with them. Like, were people in the plant just being like, "Oh, wow, Russ, you're here. Let me show you exactly what I'm doing," or were they just like, "Oh, who's this guy? Whatever."
You again? Yeah. So it was. They definitely rolled out the red carpet. Like Acne's is the best example. I think I showed it in the video, but they made signs all throughout their building that said like Russ Acne's, and
Really?
it had like hearts and stuff. And so yeah, you can see that in the footage. Like they spent days on that. They must have, And I was like, this is so awkward, So they really went all out, and that was so sweet, like it was just kind of funny that they did that and whatnot. But for the most part, it was like for example, like Chinese hospitality is crazy. Like I have been like other places and had like meetings and stuff like that. A lot of it like when I was a food blogger and stuff. I've never seen the level of hospitality that they had. Like it was just kind of insane. Get there, they're making their tea already. They've got snacks set up. Like the Ambernick CEO, like he's from a different part of China. That's like on the coast. And so like one of the things they did is like they sent me this picture and it was like squid. And I was like, thank you for sending me a picture of this squid in a bucket, and they're like, no, this is squid from our hometown. Somebody is driving it over right now, 3 hours to get there so that we can have it for lunch. That's like how much their hospitality is. They want to like show where they're from and what's important to them and stuff. And so things like that, they're full on. They're like, yeah, we got this off a boat. It's on the car. You're going to eat it, And so that's what we had it wasn't for lunch. It was for like our afternoon tea, like 2 or 3 o'clock and stuff. And it was crazy.
Do you think this is because they knew of your food past, or did you get a sense that they were going to do this
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they know about the food stuff, but I kind of mentioned in the video, like they are so food driven. Like it's just like so crazy. They're just like, okay, we've only got like 2 hours to talk because then the main event's coming. We're going to have lunch, like that's like how it is, and they were so specific about like, like what is it you want to eat? Like what region cuisine do you want? Like the way that we talk about, oh, what do you want? Mexican, Indian, whatever, right? They're the same way, but it's like the distinct regions of China. They're like, what do you feel like? Fujian, Shenzhen, or Sichuan. Like, what are you feeling? And I'm like, I don't know any of these differences. Like as long as it's not like Panda Express, I'll be happy. And so they were all over the place with the cuisine and stuff. So I tried just about everything, but it was overwhelming, to be honest. Just the amount of variety and stuff that they had. But I enjoyed all of it. Yeah. But yeah, the hospitality is out of this world. And they definitely like kind of thought through a lot of that stuff, had specific snacks for me and stuff too.
And do you think that maybe there was a part of them doing this of like, oh, hey, if we treat him really good, he's not gonna give us a bad review on the next handheld?
I don't think that was a factor, but I will say it was a learning experience for Ambernick in particular. Like Retroid and AYN, like they were very good about, okay, like they kept me at a distance. They're like, objectivity is very important. We understand your independence. That's very important and stuff. And Ambernick just like I think because their exposure to Chinese marketing, like in that they have like employees who do the marketing and selling and stuff, that they like think of me as like a marketing arm. And I was like, that's not how I operate. You know what I mean? If I don't like a thing, I'm going to say it. Like I have to say it. Like that is part of just what I do as a channel, because you're not my customer. My viewers are, like the people who are going to potentially buy your thing. And I had to really kind of explain that, so I feel like maybe there was a bit of that tension with Ambernick in particular, where they were like kind of thinking that like I'm like on their team, but I had to kind of really establish like, listen, I'm not on anyone's team, and when they found out, like a good example is like when they found out that 1X Player was going to pay for my travel home, they were like, why would you do that? Like, why didn't you ask us? And I was like, because like I cover you guys so often. I only cover 1X Player like once a year, if that, like the conflict of interest is there, And so it was a learning experience for both of us. I think just kind of me understanding that they just kind of couldn't fathom like an independent reviewer, and then me kind of trying to explain that at the same time.
I mean, yeah, like it is definitely a completely different thing over in not just China, but a lot of Asian countries. I mean, I've heard plenty of stories about Korean-based companies too, that it
Sure.
just are like it. They see these people who cover products as an extension of marketing. You're completely right. I mean, yeah. We get some of that in the U.S. as well, and I mean, some of the PR people that we deal with are actually on the marketing team, right? And so, like, it's definitely kind of part of the thing that we have to navigate and be like, okay, well, why are they interfacing with us? How do we make sure that we maintain journalistic integrity, and how do we just prison ourselves in the the way that we need to for the people who watch us, kind of thing, rather than be like, oh yeah, no, we're just here to shill for something.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely a fine line to walk. You know what I mean? Because I could see that being like, they want to treat me so well and stuff. I'm feeling a positive thing. I mean, my take on it, I don't know what your take is, but like if I'm traveling for an event, like to go and see a handheld like the ROG Ally or 1X Play or whatever, my rule is I won't do a review like in their house, basically. Like I need to be back at my house where I could do my own testing, where I have a distance from them before I make any assessment of the value of that or whether or not something's worth it. Because you can't do that at the event, at least in my own personal opinion, because there's too many like positive feelings going around. Like the vibes aren't right. And so it has to be a bit more clinical. So that's kind of my thing. It's like, I'll do a preview video. I did a preview of the ROG Ally bundle thing. I did a preview of the MSI Claw and the 1X Player and stuff. All that really makes a lot of sense to me. But the review is going to be here at home.
Yeah, I mean, but even at home, there is no such thing as a paid review either. Like, yeah, regardless of situation, I like paid reviews is not something either of us play in.
Right.
So yeah, like first initial impressions, first hands on, that kind of stuff, whatever. But yeah, like that. Anytime you're making a value judgment, anytime that you're making some sort of, definitive statement or saying, hey, this is, my deep thoughts on something that I've come to over time, then yeah, you don't want money to play a role in that.
Right.
Like there's always that. I mean, we can talk forever about ethics and stuff like that. Like there's plenty to get around there. I mean, one of the things like in the Claw, like, reviewers kit that we got sent is an Intel Arc koozie, and like there are some people who are like, oh yeah, you never accept gifts or anything like that, but also it's just like, okay, I mean, I've got 20 of these kind of things, so like this isn't gonna make me review the Claw.
Now I like the MSI Claw. It's got a koozie.
But also, I mean, one of the things Gordon had always done too is that he would actually keep all this stuff and put it in a big box and then like give it to family. Like, so you're not denying it. You're still accepting it as a gift. It's part of Asian culture for sure. So he's like, okay, I'll accept the gift, but then I'm also going to just pass it on to somebody. So I actually have a huge box at the office, like just filled with stuff that I get from trade shows. And I used to have a good outlet for it because Gordon's daughter used to be the president of her esports club at Berkeley High. She has since graduated, but often like we would like give her a bunch of stuff and be like, oh yeah, give this to your friends in high school. And then, I mean, they would eat it up. Right. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely, that's one of the things I do too, is like I try to give things away and stuff. And, I'll take like pens at a trade show or whatever and be like, hey kids, pens, I never heard of these companies, but they always love that little stuff.
That is pretty funny. Well, you mentioned 1X Player a couple times. They flew you out. I was actually very surprised to see you didn't talk about 1X Player at all in the video.
Yeah.
What happened?
So I didn't have a lot to say, and I was trying to focus on the retro handheld like aspect of my channel and stuff. And so I kind of had mentioned it a bit already in my 1X Player video where I did for them, and I didn't have a lot to say beyond that, other than a couple things. And that these were actually notes that I had, was like, oh, I'll talk with Adam about this, and that'll be a better fit, So one was like the fluidity of like company names, like they just don't care. Like I'm like, okay, so you guys are 1 Netbook, 1X Player, 1X Sugar, 1X Fly, AOK Zoe, like, and they're just like, yes, like they just don't care, like the name on the building was 1 Netbook, right? But then everything else was saying 1X Player. They were referring themselves as 1X Player, and the fluidity of just this company name, and they probably got little LLCs for each of these, right? Like they've got their finger in every pot and one of them's going to take off. And that's just kind of what they're doing, So that was just really interesting to me. More Chips the same way. They're the ones that own AY and Retroid. Like they just don't care that they are different names and that like, people like this conspiracy, they're the same company and stuff. They're like, okay. They're separate legal entities. We have the same management. Like they just like, it's not a priority. It's not a thing that like, that they like the image, I guess, is like the biggest thing. Like they don't need a concrete solidified image. It's the kind of thing that I was thinking to myself. For me, it's like branding is really important. You know what I mean? I put Retro Game Core on everything, and that's mostly just to have a single identifiable thing, and they're just kind of a little bit more fluid. So that was one really interesting thing that I took away from 1X Player.
I mean, I think maybe a cynical way to look at it too is, if you have your hand in a bunch of different pies, if one of those turns out to be really good, then cool, you can capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Or if one of it turns out to be really bad, then it doesn't affect the other ones.
Move on, right?
So, I mean, I guess that's another way to look at it too.
So speaking of which, that's the other big takeaway with 1X Player. I was like, okay, when's the 1X Sugar 2 coming out, right? That was their contraption handheld, right? They would just like, and they just like immediately started like groaning and cringing. Like when I said 1X Sugar, there's like, oh, such a big failure.
Who was groaning? Like multiple people, or?
Yeah, like the room.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah,
like they were embarrassed of it, or like what? Or
yeah,
they messed up, or what?
No, they immediately like were just like, this was not like something we're like proud of. Maybe like they just like it was not a good launch. Like it wasn't a handheld that gave them a good return on everything they had done in terms of effort and everything else. And I had to sit them down and be like, listen, I gave it probably the worst review out of all of them. Like they removed my video from their Indiegogo page once they had watched it. Initially they put it up and they're like, hey, look, Russ made a video, and then they took it down, And so like I gave them a pretty scathing review because I couldn't see the value in this thing. I just couldn't enjoy it in all its many ways. But I had to be like, listen, Generation 1 product, you did all that work to get to that point. You just need to keep going. You know what I mean? Like, just don't stop now.
Learn.
Like, exactly. Like, learn, iterate, go on. There's such a big window for high-end Android gaming, and we can't just let AYN and INEO set the standard. Like, you should be able to compete and do everything else, right? And they've obviously got, some sort of capital to burn. If they're able to have these high-end handheld PCs, why not something that costs half as much, So that was like kind of the big push. I was like, and I brought my Odin 3. I was like, look at this thing. I'm like, you guys could do something kind of like this, right? And that was the other thing, is that they just were like, yeah, I don't think we're doing Android again. They really weren't happy with the 1X Sugar. Now I don't want to put any words in their mouths, what I mean? But that was just kind of the vibe and everything. Also had a big language barrier in that one because I didn't have a translator that day. And so it was hard to get my point across when I was talking to them as well. But yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think it's going to be a 1X Sugar 2. We'll see.
Well, that's the other thing, is that money to throw around. I always operate under the assumption that like every company lives or die by the next launch,
right,
kind of thing. And
yeah.
I mean, the margin on these, like they're only making money on the hardware sold. They're not making money on the software like Valve is with the Steam Deck, anything like that. So like they really have to make sure things are a hit. And if it doesn't, who knows what that's going to be to the bottom line, kind of thing. But like, it also doesn't sound like they're like hedging their bets on release to release, right?
Yeah, they I don't know what's going on with them. It was really because they operate with small numbers. I mean, they don't have a large volume of total sales. And I asked them too. I was like, what is the split? Like, how many domestic versus international sales? And I think they said like 60-40 domestic versus international. I was like, well, okay, well, I've seen your international sales. Like, you can see it on the Indiegogo page, how many backers they have and stuff. And it's in the hundreds. I've never really seen in the thousands. And so, yeah, it's kind of incredible that they must have enough profit margin to be able to keep operating. They had a nice, beautiful building. I showed it in my 1X Player video. Like, it's a nice building, much better than anything I'd seen in any of the other times I was in Shenzhen. But yeah, I don't know how they're kind of going about that. My guess is the Apex, which is their most recent handheld. That's the one with the Strix Halo chipset inside of it. I think that was a big success for them. I think that aftermarket, like after Indiegogo and stuff, they kept getting more and more sales because like the momentum started picking up because there was only that or the Win 5. And I think one of the INEOs, like there just wasn't really that high end gaming level. And I feel like they basically won that race, and so I think they got a lot of sales from that, and so that's why they're kind of jumping right into high end, like the G3 Extreme that they're working on, and then the other AI Max. And that was another really interesting thing, is that they were like, yeah, AI 395, and I was like, like that's a really big CPU, like the G3 Extreme is a great example where they cut down the CPU to give more space for the GPU, like to be able to balance it a bit better for handheld gaming. And I mentioned the 388 is like that as well, where they've pared down the CPU, but it's the same big old GPU. And so I was like, have you guys thought about that? And they're like, oh yeah, we're thinking about it. And then the next day they're like, hey, good news. We're just going with the 388. We're going to just not do the 395. And this is like 3 days before launch. I was like, I can't believe you guys changed that so quick. But yeah, they totally did. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, because what they had to call up AMD and put in an order and be like, hey, you know what? We're going to change that order. We wanted 395, but now, you got some 388. I mean, because that's the other thing we've talked about this. Like that got announced at CES, and to my knowledge, we have not seen any of those 388. Handhelds
I didn't even think it was
there.
possible. Right. And so this is going to be the first 388 handheld, the one that actually has the CPU versus the GPU, like in a better balance for handheld gaming. A couple of people got mad at me because I had mentioned like the update. I'm like, hey, here's the update. You know, this is all great for handheld gaming. A couple of people were like, well, I wanted that big CPU. And they're like mad. And I'm like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to say. That this is going to be better for handheld gaming.
Yeah, I mean, like there definitely is a contingent of people who are looking at these high-end devices, like, I mean, even like this new Claw, whatever, as, oh, I actually want this to be my everything. It's going to be a handheld gaming device. I'm going to dock it at home. I'm going to edit video on it. So, I mean, I guess I can see that, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, you can't make a device for everyone unless you're Ambernick. Which actually brings me to another quick question before I forget. Did you talk to them about the joke of, oh wow, it's a new week and a new Ambernick device?
Yeah, so that was a really interesting dynamic. So I talked about Max Zhou, right? So he's like the lead designer. He's the guy who's like coming up with the concept. He's leading that team of engineers who are doing all the build out design and everything, right? But he's not the CEO. The CEO is another guy, right? And he's the guy making the final decision. He's the business guy, right? And they kind of butt heads a little bit, you know, and in a good way, you know, like it's kind of like, I don't know, Simon and Garfunkel or something. I don't know if they have a contentious relationship, but you know what I mean? Like, okay, Paul and John, right? The Beatles, right? Like competitiveness and that kind of stuff just spurs more stuff, right? So like kind of like that. And yeah, the whole H700 thing, like it's not like something that they like, or I don't know the right word for it. So they basically, apparently, and this is just what I had heard from the translator, was that like, when they released their controller last year before, their first controller, it was right in the heyday of all these devices, right? I guess on the social media on Chinese side, someone had made a joke like, oh, did you put an H700 in it? Which is the chip in all the other XX devices. And that was the thing that like made them mad. And so they're like, all right, fine, we're not going to do these all the time. And so that's like one of the reasons apparently that they kind of slowed down their output. It was like they were being made fun of, you know, and not just, I mean, I think on the Western side it already was happening, but they kind of operate outside of looking at Western social media. Like they don't really care what we think, you know, but on the Chinese side, that's what like kind of tipped them over the edge. So I did make jokes about that. And I was like, hey, you know, like, you know, you guys were making so many, now you're not and stuff. And that's kind of like what I'd heard about it was that, yeah, it was like the feedback that they were like, fine, we're not going to make any more of those, which is kind of a bummer. Cause I was like, maybe just slow your output, but don't just stop. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really good chipset for the price. And so, yeah.
Well, I mean, that was the other thing. I mean, we talked about earlier this episode of, hey, we're kind of worried that the growth and adoption of handheld gaming is slowing because of all the pricing problems in the world. Did you get any sort of indication that they were just like, oh yeah, like memory is really bad, we're having to increase prices, and you know, things are getting bad?
Yeah. So I think that it actually surprisingly did not come up often. And I think it's because their model is to make new hardware. Like we just mentioned, right? Like the way they make their sales is by making a new device and selling the hardware, and that's it. And so the only thing that will make them additional money is to make another device, right? And so I think they're just kind of cruising along. They're still going with that, and they just are kind of adapting to the pricing as needed, basically, as what's happening in the world. And so that's not, I didn't get any like feedback where they're like, yeah, we were going to make this, but prices are too high, so we're not. Or that we are slowing down deliberately because of pricing. I didn't hear any of that stuff. It was just like, hey, we're going to chug along. This is how we do things. This is what's important to us. It's our model, basically. And so, yeah, I wasn't seeing like any sort of like indication that pricing was affecting them in their design plans.
Well, what about some of the other companies? Like we talked last week, Steve and I, about the AYN saying, hey, the next batch of Thors,
Right.
and I think it was Odin's, are
Mm-hmm.
going to have a price increase attached to them. Like anything from any other company about all this kind of stuff?
No, not really. I mean, even that price increase that they had mentioned or whatever, they were very vague about. It sounds like it's because they're being fed like kind of vague information from the suppliers. Like they don't know what the price is going to be increased to just yet. They just know it's going to go up. And so it sounds to me like they're being as transparent as they can with the information that they have, and so they probably could do a better job explaining that part, and saying, hey, we don't know what the price is going to be just yet. We're still waiting on our supplier and the contract that we're going to sign for this next batch or whatever. But instead, they're just like, yeah, it's going up. You better buy one, that kind of thing. And so it could be a translation thing. But yeah, I was surprised at how little they focused on the whole pricing thing and how things are hard and all that stuff. I think they just kind of adapt to pricing in general. Like sometimes I guess maybe analog sticks are more expensive and they adapt and whatever, happens to be.
Yeah, because I mean, it is a sum of its parts, right? And you're putting it into this
Right.
jigsaw piece puzzle, and they're like, okay, well, the price had to increase over here, so maybe we skimp out and put a speaker on the back, at this time, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another big thing. Is like, the speaker on the back of the RD Rotate, the lack of the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and stuff. It's like, just, that was one of the things I was like, why do you guys always like mess up one thing? And they were like, well, it's
Did
so
you say it that way?
I kind of did. I was like,
Yeah,
there's always
why
just
do you always
something.
mess up one thing?
Yeah. And I was like, is that on purpose? And they're like, no. They're like, we're just doing the best that we can. And like, it's so complicated. There's so many factors that we have to deal with and stuff that you can't nail everything. Like there's just some times where they just have to make a compromise based on timing or supply issues or whatever, all those little things that we just kind of simplify in the, like on the Reddit world where it's like, oh, Ambernick, they're evil. Look at what they did. It's because they're evil. And it's like, no, it's because like they had to deal with whatever constraint they had. And so the biggest one was like the RGDS, which I talked about in the video, where it's like they put such a weak chip in that thing and most everything was okay. The screen still wasn't great either, but it was the chip really that set it off. And I was like, why didn't you use the T618, which was one that they had used in other devices? It would have been a decent price and everything else. And they're like, oh, you mean the one that doesn't work with two screens? Like it's like they couldn't have used that chip. And so they kind of had to explain some of those constraints as well. It's like, what are you going to do? You're either going to put in a chip that will at least do what we're trying to attach to, but maybe not in the best way possible, or charge twice as much because the only other chip we have access to is one that's way more expensive and hotter running and all the other things that they have to deal with. So yeah, it's just kind of weird. Like imagine building Legos, right? You've only got so many pieces. You want to make your perfect masterpiece, but you got to work with what you have.
Are you happy you went?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I really am. I'm like happy and unhappy, if that makes any sense, because I mean, I didn't talk about it in my video and stuff, but they did show me like some ideas that they have for future products and stuff. And I was like, that spoilers, you know what I mean? Like, it's like when I go to a movie theater, I hate going to the movies because they show me trailers that I actively avoid. Like, I don't want to see trailers ahead of time because it's like, I don't want to know that the Red Hulk is in Captain America Brave New World. I don't want to know that. I just want to be able, yeah, well, it's in the poster. I mean, I can't. Anyway, like those are the things I don't want to see, right? And that's kind of the feeling I had. It's like, I get it. Like you want my advice or, my opinion of this kind of stuff. But I'm like, I don't want to see it. Like, don't show me that stuff, So that was like a weird dynamic thing where I really was like kind of like tight-lipped. I was like, cool, great. Nice to see you working on it. And it's like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you better fix this and like try to tell them how to do their job, right? And so that was like some people want me to do that, but I really don't think that that's my purpose as a reviewer. You know what I mean? And so I can clarify things and understand, like I give understanding of why my approach to things and what expectations are maybe for a Western audience, but I'm not gonna be like, okay, I'm in charge now. You know what I mean? Like you're all in prison with me, kind of thing from Watchmen or whatever. So
yeah. I mean, it is a hard balance though, because you just talked about earlier how you were able to kind of steer 1X player towards the 833, right, or I'm sorry, the 388 versus the 395. So, I mean, you did have an impact. You gave feedback there.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
to be
it's
honest,
hard.
there's no way they were able to change that overnight. They must have already been thinking about it. So I was just like the little, that little
The little nudge.
the little nudge that they needed, right? And so yeah, little things like that. But overall, I did definitely enjoy the trip. I learned just a lot about just being in China and just like the culture and the food and stuff too. But then also just like what it's like for these people to try to make it in this world, like trying to, create these new devices, making people happy and stuff like that. And we're just talking about the handheld guys. I also talked, to 8-Bit Do and like all their stuff. They say 8-Bit Do there. And I was like, and while I was there with them, I'm like, I'll say 8-Bit Do in front of you, but like it's 8-Bit Do in my heart and I can't change that. And so
I've been trying to tell people this for years.
I know. Right. So, but they did say 8-Bit Do, like the people that work there. But to be honest, too, the guy doing all the translating had only worked there for a few years. And I was like, you don't even know the old days. You know what I mean? 10 years ago, it was definitely 8-Bit Do, And so,
Back in my day.
Right, exactly. And, but yeah, that was also another cool thing. It was just that company also just pumping out this, like, these dreams that they have, nostalgia and stuff. And I mentioned it in a text that we had, but like their lead designer, huge Castlevania Symphony of the Night fan. And he, to the point where I had like mentioned the game or something like that. He's like, oh, this game. And he pulls out his disc, right? His hard shell disc, opens it up, and it's signed by all the creators. And I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. This is so cool. And he's like, oh, and watch this. And he walks over to his CRT, which has his PlayStation 1 hooked up to it, opens it up, puts the disc inside, turns it on, and shows me his save file that has 202% of the map cleared. Right? Like this guy is like, he's the diehard, and he's like, this is from the 90s, like this save files from the 90s, and then he showed me the weapon that he had. So he was, Alucard, and he was using like the demon guy, like walking around with him. And he had this sword that would like go, and it would like show like these white, like kind of like just hitting it once would be like 8 slashes. I don't know if you know this weapon or not.
Oh, it's the Chrysogrim. Yeah, it's like the OP one. So like the one where like it doesn't stop the walking animation, right? It just like does slashes in front and you can just continue to walk. Yeah, exactly. that is like, it's the best or one of the best swords in the game for sure. It kind of breaks it.
So he had that weapon. He's showing it to me, and he goes, the reason why I'm showing you this is because in some of our controllers, we have like an RGB lighting that will go across. And it's like mimicking this specific sword in Castlevania. So it's like they've embedded their love of these old school games in the hardware and didn't tell anybody,
It's cool.
Yeah, it's like super cool the way that they like approach things and stuff. And so, yeah, that was also really fun just to watch like these people who equally love these retro games and are just trying to share it. It's like, it feels like if I was the lead designer of a controller company, like these are the little things that I would be doing as well. And he's just like, millions of them, like just these cool little callbacks to all this stuff. So I thought that was really neat.
And you can tell, like, it definitely comes through in companies when they release stuff.
Yeah.
Like, like there's definitely bigger companies that are like designed by committee and stuff like that.
Right.
And then there's smaller companies that are just like, oh, this is a labor of love. Like everybody here is just having fun. And sure, they can make products that don't miss the mark. But for the most part, they're just doing fun stuff. So
it was cool.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it was so cool to see the passion, right? Even 1X player, right? We were sitting down and they had me all sitting in front of like, oh, he's the head of our R&D, he's the head of whatever, like just all their stuff, the CEO's there and stuff. And I can't just leave well alone, right? So I was like, that plastic texture you have on your devices, right? Because I hate that texture. And I was like, can you just like not, and like I kind of explain the smudginess and stuff and like walk them through that. And the lead R&D guy, I was like, oh, he's gonna kill me, right? Like he's gonna be so mad. And he just looks over the CEO and was like, see, you know what I mean? Like he had the argument too, And so I was like, yeah, that's a win for us. So maybe a future iteration they're gonna fix the plastics on it, make it just, I don't know what it needs, just something that it's like almost good, but just not quite there. Too powdery, too smudgy, just some sort of finish to it, And
it looks premium, but
really does.
The feel, and it feels premium, but it's not designed for long-term use.
Right. Yeah. Especially because they're making such heavy handhelds. So it feels like it's just going to slip out of my hands sometimes, So anyway, yeah, that was like the cool thing is like I was able to like feed some of their own passions, whereas like the R&D guy was like, see, I've been saying this for years or whatever. And so pretty interesting.
That's funny. That's funny. All right. Anything else you want to cover before we move on?
No, I think that's really it. Like I really enjoyed my time, and I knew that we were going to kind of talk more about it. And so this has been a lot of fun too. So you're such a good interviewer, like asking your questions and stuff.
I just
really
love
drive a
talking to you,
conversation.
Russ.
No,
I just love talking to you, man. Like, yeah, picking your brain. Like, I feel like I'm the lucky one who gets to ask you the questions. I got to watch the video this morning, and I was like, oh, I've got this question for Russ. I've got this question for Russ.
That's amazing. No, you do a great job. And these are things that are like in my head, but like sometimes it's hard to flesh them out, And so you do a great job of kind of calling some of that stuff out. So thank you.
It's fun stuff. Well, I gotta give you a little spoiler for last week's episode. I know you haven't fully gotten through it.
Yeah, I stopped right before you guys were going to show off all the handhelds, so I'm going to watch that.
Yeah,
after this.
so
give me a spoiler.
So Steve Lynn had a lot of cool, weird, wacky historical handhelds to show off. But then he told me when he rolled up, he was like, "Oh, we were kind of going through the show notes, and he's like, yeah, let's cover this and then this. I think this makes the most sense." And he's like, "Oh yeah," and then I got a surprise at the end, and I was like, "Oh, should you tell me the surprise now before the show, or should we do it live on the thing?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know, it's up to you." And I was like, "Hey, no, don't tell me. Like, keep the surprise for the thing." And so at the end of that section, he gifted me a in-box PSP, a PSP 1000. Yeah, it was like literally his PSP 1000 that he got at launch, which was like the value pack one. So it came with like a sleeve and the Spider-Man 2 movie and And so man, I tell you what, speaking of what's in my pocket, I have been playing the hell out of the PSP 1000, and I've been looking for one for a bit, and Steve has been my arms dealer of sorts. And so yeah, like I did not expect him to roll up and gift me that. So like in the moment, like I think in the video too, I was like, I watched back later and I was like, wow, it took me a while to thank him for it. I was like, man, that was rude of me. I thanked him afterward again too, and was just like, oh man, you really didn't have to do that. Like it took me off guard. I didn't know what to say. And so yeah, I fired it up. I did have to get a new battery. So he had the original battery and it was swelling like a spicy pillow for sure. So I was like, oh yeah, no problem. I got one off Amazon, but then I also got one at my local game shop here. Just like it still surprises me that they make brand new batteries for it. And specifically, I got this Ostent one, which was kind of the best reviewing one on Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that.
So yeah, the other one I got from the local shop actually has a higher wattage capacity, but from what I read online, people are like, yeah, it reads as a higher wattage, but they're using cheaper cells, and so actually it's like not the better way to do it. So
that's one of those things
using that one.
Right, is that the third-party battery is never as good as a first-party one, but the first-party ones will swell and they'll lose their charge and stuff. They even sell some that are like much bigger, but then you also have to get a new case for that. And so it wraps around. And so I got one of those and I was like, this is stupid. And I never used it.
I mean, dude, the thing is, like, this released in 2005. And I mean, number one, Steve takes really good care of his stuff, so it's in really good condition. I mean, the only issue so far is it does have a dead pixel in the screen. But other than that, I mean, it is in fantastic condition. Like I've had no issues so far, at least. And I did soft mod it. I got one of those. What is the proprietary stick?
Memory stick.
Yeah, a Memory Stick Pro Duo, but I got the one that has a little adapter so I could put a micro SD card in it. Yeah. So yeah, and loaded, what is it, ARC 4? I think it is.
Like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I've mostly been loading up ROMs. I do have some physical games. Like, so you know I came
Silent
home
Hill,
with the Silent Hill Shattered Memories, and I was like, all right, cool. I've got one of my favorite games. Now I need to get a PSP. Now I have a PSP. Which, side note, I know I'm kind of all over the place. Sorry. And we talked about this a little bit offline, but this version of Silent Hill Shattered Memories is really baking my noodle. like
that's the one with the English subtitles, right? It was like
so
not
on the box. Oh no, I haven't talked to you about this. I was talking with Steve about this.
Yeah.
So yes, when we bought this in Taiwan, it had a sticker on it that said English subtitles, and I was like, okay, cool. And then even on the back, it does say voice Chinese and English, and then subtitle Chinese, or not Chinese, but maybe Chinese, maybe Japanese. I actually don't know that the lettering, and so I was like, oh, okay, well at least it has English subtitles, so that's why I picked it up. And then through the course of cataloging it, because I use an application called, what is it, Game Eye, I think.
Right. Yeah.
What is it?
I was calling it
Game Eye.
Yeah. Yep,
yeah, to catalog my physical game collection. And so I was putting it in there, and they had the listing for the US version, which obviously I don't have. And then they had the listing for the Japanese version. And then I looked at it and I was like, no, that doesn't look the same. Like the front cover, this image is the US one, but the Japanese version actually has a completely different image.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, okay, well, that's weird. This must be a different version. So I did Googling and found out, like on the back, it even says here that it is something about Hong Kong. Oh yeah, printed in Hong Kong. So I was like, oh, okay. Sometimes there's like there's a Japanese, but then there's a general Asian version, which would make sense for Taiwan. I've seen that before. And so it does on the front have like a little logo or something. On the back, it has like a little 3 above the planet here, but like everything's in English. Like from the manual to everything, and I plopped in the game in my brand new PSP, and everything's in English.
Ooh.
Like it's not in Japanese, it's not in Chinese, it's nothing. And I'm sitting here like, wait, is this a bootleg version? Did they just did they steal an American version and then print something somewhere?
Right.
And like I cannot find, at least in the digging that I've done, I cannot find the exact imaging that I have, because even the actual UMD disc does not look like anything I can find between any versions, and especially this little thing right here on the front. I have not been able to find it. So hopefully maybe there's somebody in our community that can tell me like the story behind this, because it's probably like a Hong Kong version, but I can't find images of it anywhere.
So I just kind of did some Google searching. So that 3 icon that you're showing, that's the region icon, right? And so 3 is Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea. And that's because they had multiple different types of PSPs. There was like region 1, which is North America, region 2, which is Europe and Japan, and then region 3. So I think that that's a region 3 game. I mean, if the console was region 3, then the games probably would mark that as well. And so, yeah, it's probably like a Taiwan version of it. And that's why you're seeing that. The only difference will be that, you can't, like, it's universal. Like, you can play any game in any region, but you can't do the movies outside of your region. So you wouldn't be able to play a region 3 movie on your PSP, which is a region 1, but otherwise, yeah. So that's my guess, is probably a Taiwan, Hong Kong produced version of it. And it's probably just so not out there, in popularity, that there's no good documentation about it.
Yeah, maybe they just didn't make this many. And I mean, really the real kicker for me is that everything's in English.
Right. like they default to that first. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I mean,
maybe
even on the
your
back,
system language is English. And so maybe it knows and it picks up on that, maybe.
Okay. Because in the game, I was even looking for options to change, because I mean, it does say that there is a different voice and text in here, but I didn't see it in the game. So maybe that makes sense that it would be like locked to the hardware. So, I mean, I guess lucky me. Yeah. Essentially getting the game in English.
And a rare one that isn't even on the internet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's really weird. But anyway, real quick. So Steve did gift me Lumines.
I had that at launch. Yeah.
That Wipeout Pure. Which
nice.
I like a lot.
I prefer Pulse, but Pure is good.
Yeah. I did, for some reason, and I actually don't know where I got it, but I had in my drawer Metal Gear Acid 2. Just the UMD disc. I don't remember picking this up, but at some point I did. And then I just got on eBay the original Metal Gear Acid.
Nice.
Because it was relatively cheap, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So like I'm now starting to grow a little bit of my PSP collection. And
beautiful.
Yeah, man, but it's just what a piece of hardware. We actually, I showed this off during Full Nerd this week and made the joke, because I also showed off the claw, and like in volume, it looks like the PSP is literally a fourth of the size of the claw.
Right.
And then when we did the price conversion, what'd she say? I think it was like $450 in today's dollars.
Oh, wow.
Which
right.
And so I was like, oh wow, this literally is like a fourth. And I joked, I was like, maybe that's my review video when I post it is the MSI Claw 8 EX 4 times better than the PSP?
That's good. Yeah, it's funny because the PSP felt big. When it first came out, I was like, wow, this is like, a big screen TV in my hands, and now this is totally different. I had a question for you.
It is hefty.
Oh yeah, it's a solid guy. So my question is, when we were in Taiwan, you were like, yeah, I'm looking for a PSP 1000. And I never really stopped and be like, why? Like, why the 1000 versus the 2 or the 3? Because I unfortunately bricked my 1000 trying to put ROMs on it back in the day. And so and then this is me being dumb. I just tossed it. I was like, oh, it'll never work again. And I just like, whoop, and lost it, And so I no longer have that guy, but I've rebought like the 2000 and the 3000. I've got a few of those, and I have the PSP Go. So why the 1000 for you?
I mean, 2 reasons. Number one, nostalgia. Because I had a 1000.
Okay.
And so I actually don't know if I've ever really played on a later version. Like I don't even know what they feel like,
sure.
Which it is fine. So like the main thing is nostalgia. And I guess the second part of it is like the other ones, while they were better in certain areas, because I know the screen got kind of updated in certain areas.
Yeah, it got brighter.
From what I've heard, the build quality, like they had to like cut corners to get a better cost. Like the actual UMD tray, like you just kind of throw it in and close it rather than having this like spring ejected like loader. And that the actual like build quality is different. Maybe you can answer that. Like,
well, it's been so long since I've held it 1000. I can tell you the 2 and 3000s, they feel like they're not quite as premium. Like they're a little cheap feeling. I've got like a blue one from Japan. I've got a red God of War one and stuff, and they're fine, but they don't blow me away. And so now you're making me want a 1000 to see like what the difference is. Maybe the next time we meet up, I'll force you to bring it, and then I can just hold it without having to buy one.
I mean, before we wrap this up real quick, I do want to say, like, I've been on this retro kick for sure, like rediscovering the old hardware, and especially with this one, it feels still so modern in a lot of ways. But one of the things that I'm really appreciating, which I like, they sold it at the time as being this big multimedia device, but right now I'm just using it as a handheld, or I'm just playing games with it, and it feels nice to not have to worry about notifications or updating the system in the background, or what power profile am I on, like like all of these things of all of these things of a modern handheld, which are cool and it's awesome to mess around with, but there is something to be said of like, no, this just does one thing. It just plays PSP games. Well, and I know technically you can load up ROMs and emulators for other devices and stuff, but I'm like, no, I just want to play PSP games on this. So,
yeah. No, that's kind of amazing. And the interface is very snappy too, right? You know what I mean? And that was like, I saw a video where someone was like, when is Xbox full screen experiences, before they called it Xbox mode, they're like, when is Xbox full screen experience going to play like this? And it was just someone going on their PSP back and forth in the cross media bar. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point.
Right. Yeah, it is really, really nice piece of hardware. And thank you again to Steve for gifting me that. I was just, I didn't know what to say. Like I at the time I was just like shocked and stunned. So yeah, it's been fun. The other part that you'll get to that, sorry, Russ, I'm going to spoil for you, is that Steve talked about a modding, or a thing he tried to mod, which was the Legend of Zelda Game & Watch. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I have one.
Nintendo released that. I actually ended up picking up one because he was talking about it. But there's a modding scene out there. I don't know if you've heard about it, that people have figured out that if you replace like the RAM and the storage, that this thing actually has enough grunt to do some really good emulation, especially in such a small, like, nice package.
Yeah, I think I saw people put Doom on it, and that was like the last I heard of it. So I didn't hear about any of this.
Well, Mr. Macho Nacho Productions has a video on like showing the mod process. Unfortunately, Steve bricked his, like it like he ended up tearing the I think it was the RAM that he was trying to desolder that ended up tearing. So he's like, he didn't get the mod to work because it is a little more expert level. But yeah, like I knew this came out, and I knew this came out with Zelda 1 and 2 for the NES, but either I had forgotten or didn't realize that it had the
Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening on it. And I was like, oh, I love Link's Awakening. So actually that's what I've been doing, is just slowly chipping through Link's Awakening on this. Unfortunately, it's the Game Boy version and not the Game Boy Color version. I was hoping they would have like, just the other color palette to it.
Right.
But yeah, it's been
such a good game. Yeah, it's a beautiful game. The battery life on that is great too, which is kind of surprising.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I got both. I have the Mario and the Link one.
Oh, okay. And the other little feature, which maybe I can show off here, is that I didn't know that the back, the little Triforce, like lit through the plastic, and so like I turned it around one time and I was like, oh no, I think that's supposed to do that. It was a nice little touch.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, actually, when that came out, it was like 2021 or so. I made a video about it, and I was like, hey, I'm giving this to my son for Christmas, but I'm gonna unbox it first. and I was like, he doesn't watch this channel, no worries. And so I like had a video unboxing his Christmas present, and then like putting it back together, and then giving it to him or whatever. But like, I was like, it's content, you know what I mean? And so it's pretty funny.
He's older now. Do you think he's gonna go back and watch that video and be like, wait, that's mine?
I don't think he cares. He's like 17 now. I think he just like gave it to me at some point. He's like, Dad, you want this thing? He's like, because it never really jived with him. So it's like, it's not Minecraft at the time, And so, so that's why I say I have it, because I literally have it here in the studio. So.
Okay. That's funny. That's funny. Well, yeah, I'd be interested to see if you would try out that mod or not. I'll link to it again in the description, because it looks pretty intense.
Brutal. Yeah. I don't know. Even like when we were in Taiwan, they were selling like soldering irons and stuff, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll finally do it. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it.
Nice. All right. Well, look, we're running long on time here, so why don't we take another ad break? And come back and finish up the show, shall we? Well, Russ, before we get out of here and before we rest up, I got to ask, like, what's coming down the pike on Retro Game Core? Obviously, you've been dealing with all this travel. You batched some videos, but you're back to the grind. What do you got?
Yeah.
What are you working on?
So I'm really playing catch up now. No joke. Like, I walked into my office and I saw the stack of boxes, and I was like, I can't, like, I don't remember saying yes to this much stuff, like it's just so much. And so, obviously the MSI Claw, like I want to try to get that out at the embargo date. So we'll see how that goes. But Lenovo sent me over their like most recent tab, like the Tab 5 Gen 5. So it's got that like really high running Snapdragon. Really interesting is that I actually did some benchmarks with it and then tested it. And, it doesn't have any active cooling. And so it just like starts to tank after like 5-10 minutes. And so the Odin 3, which has worse, like it has a lower spec chip on it, does way better. And so it's like, this thing is still the king, man. And so that's one of the things another video I want to work on is like my Odin 3 follow-up and be like, listen, this thing is still the king. Like it's so good and so nuanced that it takes me forever just to unlock its potential. And we're still kind of getting there. So yeah, that's another video I'm working on. So the Legion Go, or not Legion Go, but the Legion Tab, the Odin 3 update video. And then I've got like, what's that company that makes like the SN operator, the GB operator? They like have the disc readers. So I got those in. I forgot the name of the company. I'm sorry, but it's like sitting right over there. So they have like these little like docks, and you can put your cartridge in and it'll read your cartridge. You can even play it directly on your computer, like an emulator as well at the same time.
And they have disc ones?
No, they're for Game Boy and Super Nintendo. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just cartridge readers. So you just pop them in, and then you can read the disc, pull the ROM off of it if you want to, or then also you can just like immediately play it on your computer. And so they sent me those over with like no obligation or anything. They just wanted me to test it, and so I might make a video about that. Yeah, I've got a lot of other stuff. I can't even think about it, and obviously that MSI claw is going to take up a lot of time too. So yeah, a lot going on. I'm going to be a busy boy. And the thing is, in like 2 weeks, my family is going to Australia. So we like all the travel that I've been doing, I like built up enough miles. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just all go to Australia. And so we're all going to Australia on frequent flyer miles, which is crazy because it's very cheap, you know, from here to Sydney. And so we're just doing that. And I think I mentioned it before, but like my oldest son, 17 years old, prime age to go to Australia and like meet Australian girls and stuff. He declined. He's like, you know what? No, I decided I don't want to go. I'll watch the pets and I'll maybe get a job, is what he said. so it's just going to be us and our younger son. So.
He's going to stay home all by himself. And he's like, I have a party. Come over. My parents are out of town.
Yeah. I hope, you know, I want him to have a nice social life. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I make him watch some John Hughes movies before we leave so we can know, like, you know, like safer kind of, you know, non-destructive parties and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not American Pie or something.
Right, exactly.
Well, real quick, I forgot your love for the Odin. You mentioned this in your travelogue video. Obviously, when are we going to get the Retro Game Core branded Odin 3?
I don't think that's happening. I'm very curious of what they're like AYN is going to do. That's one thing where I was like, just don't tell me, you know, but like, I'm curious about what are they going to do? Like, how are they going to top this thing? Cause it's just so crazy, you know, like maybe a bigger screen or something, but it's such a good little handheld. And yeah, it's going to be like, when I make that video, it's going to be like, oh, here's Russ just gushing for 45 minutes. And that's basically it. But yeah, I really love that thing.
Paid chill. Jeez.
Yeah. Paid chill. Bought my own thing and then making this video for free. Yeah.
All right. Well, charge up that Odin. Charge up the claw because you know we gotta have some fun with it. Rest up. I mean, actually, you do need to rest up. You need to catch up on your jet lag.
I need to take some melatonin and actually go to sleep on time instead of 3 a.m. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a great time. I mean, listen, you can't be our tour guide if you don't get a proper night's rest.
Right.
Russ.
Right. So. I can't be cranky on this tour, you know.
No, you don't want that. You don't want cranky Russ. Actually, you know what? I would love to see a cranky Russ. I don't think that
this is basically it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not very cranky then.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for checking in. Glad you're back. Rest up.
You. Yeah.
Everyone, sorry we didn't get to questions. We were running a little long here, but maybe next week we'll get to some more questions. So if you want to get those questions in, go to the link in our Discord for the Full Nerd Network. We have a EH-questions channel and chat with the fine folks over there. The Handheld channel has actually been popping off pretty good lately.
Nice.
So yeah, always good to catch up with everybody. But until then, we'll catch you in the next episode, and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.